The Teller checking in, going to be doing another Dana White's Contender Series breakdown. Today's episode will be breaking down Season 3, Week 4. We got 5 fights on the card. Before I get into this card, I want to reiterate something I've said in the last breakdown of Dana White's Contender Series breakdowns. We don't want to put too much emphasis on these breakdowns. These cards are not the same as a typical UFC event. Although, with this breakdown, of tonight's fights, I will say this. I've trained with fighters that have fought guys on this card, and compared to the normal Dana White's Contender Series card, I was able to find a lot more footage of these guys, more than the typical fight card. So, you can take that with a grain of salt, as I said, though. So, we'll get into the first fight of the night. We got Brendan Allen taking on Aaron Jeffrey. Brendan Allen's coming in at a minus 485. He's 11-3. Out of the 3 losses that he's had, 2 of them were to notable opponents. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, he's a guy that's, he's fought on Dana White's Contender Series, got the victory, looked very good. He's had his UFC debut up to this point, and he did lose that fight, but I think we'll be seeing more of him moving forward, so solid fighter. He's also lost to Eric Anders. Eric Anders, man, you guys know the deal with that guy. Tough dude, has power in his hands, so you saw what he did in his last outing. So, I like to look at some of the guys that these guys have lost to kind of gauge what kind of fighters these are. And, at least 2 of his losses are, UFC caliber fighters. And then, 11 wins. That's, it's pretty nice. The guy, good frame for the weight class, 6'2". I liked what I seen from him on tape, pretty well-rounded. But he's a hefty favorite, and he's coming in. He's fighting this guy, Aaron Jeffrey. Aaron Jeffrey, also has a nice frame, 6'2". Orthodox fighter, decent reach on him. As you see, 74 inches. And here's the thing, from what I've seen from this guy, Jeffrey, the Canadian fighter, 6-1. He looks to be in very good shape from when I've seen him fighting in the cage. He's well-rounded. He has some decent striking, to go along with his submission skills. His first professional fight, pulled off a leg triangle off his back. So he has some submission skills. I also like the way he looked in his debut. The guy he was fighting already was a 3-fight professional veteran, and he was trying to punk Jeffrey out. Jeffrey was not having it whatsoever, was completely game, stepped up in that fight. I did like what I saw from him. I think the line is off on this fight, so, if you feel like, taking a value play, I see some value on Jeffrey, but, other than that, I do have Allen winning this fight. Just seems to be a little bit more polished and well-rounded, and I think there's a little bit more potential from Brendan Allen, but I'll be interested to see how this fight takes place. Up next, I'm very much looking forward to seeing this fight take place. We got Kevin Siler taking on Lance Lawrence. This guy, Siler, the Bolivian fighter, training out of American Top Team. This is a guy that's defeated one of my teammates in the past, so I happen to see that fight. I know what kind of fighter this guy is. My teammate was, he's a very good fighter. I haven't seen him in a while, but, years ago we used to roll, train very often, and the kid was a very, very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. He tried to get Siler down to the mat. Siler stuffed the takedowns very well, was able to stop my buddy over there, so I know what this guy brings to the table. Training at American Top Team, he's undefeated 8-0. This guy's rubbing shoulders with, the best of the fighters in the world. So, he did miss weight for this fight, though. So, depends how you want to look at that. I happen to think that it's probably going to be an advantage. Usually guys that miss weight, they have a higher ratio of winning fights. So, I wouldn't say this is a disadvantage, but it also could be a sign of some type of injury. A fight like this, you can't turn the fight down once you accept it. So, he might have got hurt, and it might have affected his weight cut. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Maybe there'll be a leak of what that situation was, of why he missed weight. And then you got this guy, Lance Lawrence, man, 6 foot, has a 74-inch reach for the weight class. That's very good for the featherweight weight division. This guy, like I said, undefeated, 5-0. He's a scrappy dude, has good jiu-jitsu in his own right. I'm a little worried that this fight's going to take place similarly to the fight that I told you about, one of my old training partners, where this guy Lawrence is going to want to get this fight to the mat, and Siler is probably going to stuff those takedowns. And probably, from what I've seen on the limited amount of tape I was able to see, Siler's probably going to have the better stand-up than Lawrence. But Lawrence has that X factor, man. He goes in there, he expects to win the fight. He seems to be a very scrappy opponent. His jiu-jitsu is good, like I said. But the guys that he's fighting against, it's pretty weak competition. And, I wonder what kind of training partners he has as well. This guy, Seiler, the competition he's beat may not be the best, but that he's rolling around, training with some of the top fighters out at American Top Team, and that's why he's coming in at a minus 300. But, we'll have to stay tuned to see what happens tonight to see if that minus 300 was, an accurate line. I'll take Seiler to win the fight. I understand why he's the favorite. Up next, we got Don'Tale Mayes making his return to Dana White's Contender Series. He's already fought once before in a past season, taking on Ricardo Prazel. This is another fight, man. This is going to be action tonight. So we got the heavyweight guys throwing down. This guy, Prazel, 6'9", big old heavyweight. He's had some good fighting experience in the past. He's fought in Rizin. He's 10-1. His one loss did come in Rizin. And the guy that he was fighting was a pretty solid fighter. 16-3 record, Croatian fighter. He just kind of seemed to out-grapple Prazel. Prazel was trying to get it to the mat, but was kind of falling on his back and wasn't really able to pull off any jiu-jitsu on his opponent. He's coming in at a plus 155. I think there's definitely value there. This guy, Don'Tale Mayes, already lost his first fight on Dana White's Contender Series. Seemed to be very much out of shape. I didn't like the way he looked. He looked like he was eating McDonald's and Whoppers before he stepped into that fight. Gassed very early, lost to Alan Crowder, a guy that's since really wasn't able to do much in the UFC. Don't get me wrong. This guy Mayes has power, and since that last loss that he had on Dana White's Contender Series, he came back with 2 victories where he had 2 finishes. This guy, like I said, he has the power. He has a good reach, 81-inch reach. The guy can land the hands on your head, man. He can put you out. But, if he doesn't knock this guy Prazel out, then what's going to happen? What happens if this guy Prazel, from what I've seen on tape, who continuously likes to shoot for takedowns and he's a jiu-jitsu practitioner, what happens when Mayes gasses out and Prazel, gets in on those legs and is able to trip him down and get on top of him? Maybe pulls off a submission, or, he just, instead of going for submission, holds the position. Maybe he just wants to, pull off the W. We don't know what's going to happen in this fight. So, as far as a value standpoint, you got to go with the plus 155 on Prazel, I think. I definitely wouldn't have any type of money on a minus 175 on Mayes. And, matter of fact, I'm going to take this guy Prazel to win this fight. Like I said, based on what I've seen from this guy Mayes, came in the first time. He should have been hyped up. It was a big opportunity. He came in with very bad cardio and looked to be very much out of shape. So, very unprofessional. I'm going to take Prazel to win this fight. Up next, this fight's a little hard to call. We got this guy, Odi Osbourne, the Jamaican fighter, taking on Armando Valerio. Both these guys 5'7". You can see this guy Osbourne has a 73-inch reach, which is a pretty good a good reach advantage for the weight class. And southpaw, this guy Osbourne is shown to have some pretty decent striking. It's very polished. It's not the quickest, though. That's one thing I noticed about his striking. It's kind of slowed down, but very accurate and good form. He's a well-rounded fighter. I've seen him pull off a submission as well. I think, this guy, he has some potential. And then you got this guy, Armando, who, he's coming in as a minus 185. I think I know why. He's the more stout fighter with the grappling advantage. I think, if he's able to get some takedowns, he can control Osbourne on the mat. The submissions I seen Osbourne pull off were pretty elementary. I believe he pulled off a triangle on a guy that, I don't know, the guy just did not see it coming at all. Horrible defense. But he's coming in at a plus 160. There's some value on him too because this guy, he's early in the game. He's polishing up his game. He might, stuff some takedowns, keep this fight on the feet, and get the better of Armando. So, who's to say? But I do see why Armando is the favorite. And if I had to say, how I expect this fight to play out, I would say that I see Armando Valerio getting some takedowns, controlling the fight with his grappling. Also has some power in his hands too. But, I do think Osbourne will be a little bit more polished in the feet. But I think just the strength of holding Osbourne against the cage, maybe mixing in some takedowns, I think that gives Armando the advantage. So I'll take him to win the fight. But again, this Dana White's Contender Series event, like these underdog, you're not going to take a minus 185 on a fighter like this, 5-1. You can't rely on that. That's not a real minus 185 in my book. So, if anything, the value, again, is on this guy Osbourne at plus 160 because would not be shocked if he came out there and was able to style on Armando on the feet. So, another tough call. All right, you guys, we got the main event of the evening. We got Antonio Arroyo taking on Stephen REGMAN. This guy Arroyo is going to be a little bit taller, 6 foot. He's going to have a 2-inch height advantage, but he's not going to have the reach advantage, which I was surprised to see because he looked like the more rangier fighter. Even though he's not going to have the reach advantage, though, he will have that advantage with those legs, man. And he has some nice kicks. So, keep that in mind. Arroyo looked very good in his first fight on Dana White's Contender Series. He didn't pull off the finish against Diego Enrique de Silva, but, he pretty much dominated that fight. Liked what I saw from him. He's training at Jackson's camp, so, he's getting some top-notch training. I've been keeping an eye on this guy on his Instagram. He's doing his thing. I like some of the drills I've seen him do. Like I said, very good kicks, and he uses his range and his distance very well. Good footwork. He's 8-2, decent record. Then he's taking on this guy, Steven REGMAN. This guy, Steven REGMAN, I think he's a little undersized for the weight class. I think he's fought before at welterweight. I don't know if he's bumping up in weight in order to take a fight on Dana White's Contender Series or if it's a permanent move. But, he should be a little bit of the smaller fighter in there. But does have a nice reach advantage. And this guy has hands. Definitely has hands. I've seen him put away guys on the feet with his hands. Has power. Definitely a striker. I'm sure he's rounding off his skills, but he's definitely the striker type of fighter. So he's going to go in there, and I think if he's going to pull this off, he's going to use his boxing, from what I've seen from him. So, this line's a very close line. So, really, it's who do you like in this fight? It's not so much a value standpoint. I mean, minus 135, I'm going to take Arroyo all day. I think he's just, like I said, it's pretty much almost a pick-em, and I think Arroyo's just a better fighter. So, if I was going to bet on this fight, I'm taking Arroyo. I think, like I said, he'll use his footwork. He'll use his kicks, and I think that, this time he'll realize going in there and getting a decision is not going to get you, a contract. He needs to go in there. He needs to make a statement. I think he's going to be a little bit more hyped up for this fight, and he's been getting some great training at Jackson's camp, so expect him to be more comfortable in there. He's already made this walk before, and I think this is his fight to win, so keep an eye on Antonio Arroyo, the Brazilian fighter. I think he pulls it off tonight. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up tonight's card. For those of you guys that got that ESPN Plus, I think we're going to have some good fights tonight, man. And, some of you guys that know about the illegal streaming, man, it's been a little bit harder to do as of recently. So, really, if you're going to watch these fights, I think you got to have that ESPN Plus. Shout out to you guys that do, man, the real fight fans, because these fights are fun, man. They're exciting. And I think this is going to be a good card. And I think we're going to have some potential decent or at that much solid UFC fighters come from this card. I think there's some guys that have some potential, but we'll have to wait and see. How it goes. I'm still cramming tape for this weekend's card, so that try to put that video out here hopefully by tomorrow, and got a couple plays coming up, so expect to make some money this weekend, and that's about it. The teller doing his thing over here, so I'll sign out and enjoy the fights, guys.
MMA fortune teller.
The teller.